Hey, welcome to Farm Journal Live. I'm Farm Journal editor Clinton Griffiths, coming to you from our studios here in northern Indiana. Of course, we're celebrating Dairy Week all week across a host of properties here, from AgWeb over to dairyherd.com. We'd like to invite you to join us for all of that coverage. And of course, we've got some great webinars and live events that we're going to be hosting. So make sure that you join us for Dairy Week. One thing that's not happening this week, that's World Dairy Expo. And so in honor of that, we're talking all things dairy and trying to cover a myriad of topics of things that may be impacting this industry from top to bottom. ERS, USDA calling for dairy prices to be up 3 to 4% this year, but demand for dairy, really the biggest issue since the COVID-19 pandemic started back in March. Fluid milk programs and fluid milk sales, especially to schools, are down. In fact, that makes up about 7% of the nation's fluid milk volume annually. Ag Day's national reporter Betsy Gibbon continuing our Dairy Week coverage, and she reports that the pandemic cutting into demand at school districts across the country.
Cars arrive at the Marshall Middle School in the Janesville, Wisconsin school district to pick up free school lunches for students out of the classroom.
If you're organized, you can get it done. I got it down to a pact.
It's a unique year for the district, offering face-to-face and virtual schooling. It's also a transition when it comes to handling its school meals.
It's a very fluid situation. Things change week to week. So we could be delivering meals in the near future.
Deegan is the school nutrition manager. His job of preparing, ordering, and working with contractors for meal plans is not like any year in the past.
We have to take into consideration, is that a shelf-stable item? Is it individually wrapped? Can we purchase individually wrapped versus having our staff do it?
He says the total number of students eating school meals is down district-wide.
Typically, in years past, I would have served 10,000 meals a day, plus 10,000 meals a day, breakfast and lunch. Now we're on the order of 6,500 to 7,000 a day. So it's still really good, but it's a 30% drop in milk.
Milk is a required meal component to be offered for USDA's school nutrition programs, which includes the National School Lunch Program, the School Breakfast Program, and the Summer Food Service Program, and the Seamless Summer Option. The Janesville district is still using the Summer Food Service Program, thanks to USDA's free meal program extension. Milk isn't just offered, but given in every bag, yet a small number of e-learners are picking up meals in this district. Well, out of all the students participating in e-learning, he says only 6 to 7% are taking advantage of free meals they can pick up. Dairy demand is not just uncertain for Wisconsin schools, but nationwide.
Some people had made announcements, we're out of school until end of November. So they were able to crank up purchasing. Others were like, it's week by week.
Zimnisky says DMI has hosted webinars to explain how grab and go and low contact may be the best meal options this year. Most of those meals have a dairy component like packaged yogurt or cheese. However, it may be too premature to determine if demand is picking up for those products overall nationwide.
That bites well for things like string cheese. Now, string cheese has always been popular in school meals, but even more now.
See you, buddy.
As some parents and caregivers continue to pick up meals. Hi there. The school district knows they're providing as best they can despite the uncertainties ahead in 2020.
It makes it a little easier to run the day for the kids so we can, have everything ready for us.
Reporting for Ag Day, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
Dairy demand and education, a big part of the job for Alice in Dairyland. And this year's Alice in Dairyland, we have Julia Nunez joining us now. And Julia, thank you so much for being here. Boy, it's been kind of an interesting start to your reign as Alice in Dairyland this year.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on. And it has definitely been a different year, from starting off my year to having a virtual finale for the Alice in Dairyland finals. It's just been a different year, but I tell people that I'm kind of facing it head on, and they know it's going to be an adventure for me no matter what I can and cannot do.
Now, tell us a little bit about the mission of the role of Alice in Dairyland and how it fits into the landscape there in Wisconsin.
Yes, so Alice in Dairyland is a public relations professional employed through the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection. So my job, I not only represent Wisconsin's dairy industry, but Wisconsin's $104.5 billion agricultural industry as a whole, from cranberries to mink to the corn growers. So I get to talk about everything, and I grew up on a dairy farm, so dairy is where my passion lies. And as Allison Dairyland, I get to learn so much about the agriculture we have here in Wisconsin.
So what has been the conversation and mission around these first few months as you've taken on this new role? What has been the most surprising conversation starter maybe right now?
That's a tough question. I know the first couple of months, we're just kind of figuring out things I can and maybe can't do. And I'm trying to kind of get out to industry tours, touring different farms. I know a couple weeks ago I was able to tour a potato packing plant here in Wisconsin. So I'm just kind of able to get out and explore Wisconsin agriculture and share it virtually and not so much at live events that I would normally be going to during a normal year.
You know, it's been kind of interesting this year. I've had more questions from friends and family and acquaintances about agriculture and food just because of the pandemic. Have you found that in your own experience?
Yeah, I think so. I think that this year is very different, and I think people are realizing where their food comes from. A lot of people are working from home or they're not able to work sometimes because of this, but farmers are working every day. And this is an industry that never stops working. So I think people are becoming more aware of who grows their food and how much work goes into producing it. And I think it's a unique opportunity for people in agriculture to kind of talk about all the time and effort that goes into some of these industries.
Now, one of the things that you're working on is a new campaign, starts this next month in October, around chocolate milk. Talk us through that.
Yes, so chocolate milk is the official beverage of Halloween, and I'm going to be highlighting chocolate milk in a lot of different ways that you can use chocolate milk, whether it's a recovery drink after a workout or a snack during the day, or even different recipes you can make with your kids kind of around Halloween. I know it's a little bit different, so I'm trying to bring some fun ideas that hopefully families can bring into their homes this fall.
Talk to us about why did you want to take on this role? Where's the passion for that lie? Obviously, you grew up on a farm and your family dairy farms there in Wisconsin. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so it's kind of a long story, I suppose, but I first met Alice in Dairyland when I was 10 years old. So ever since then, Alice has really been a great role model for me and my sisters, and I remember kind of finding Alice at different events and just looking up to her. And so when I was able to submit an application, I was old enough and I fit all the requirements. It's still kind of a surreal feeling that I am Alice in Dairyland, and I hope to be able to be a role model for youth in agriculture, just like Alice in Dairyland was for me, spreading awareness about the dairy industry and agriculture as a whole here in Wisconsin.
Well, Julia, thank you so much, and hopefully that you have a lot of success this year, and we are able to find a way for you to get out into classrooms. Maybe it's going to be Zoom for a while. I don't know. That's going to be the biggest challenge, I'm guessing.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to finding new ways to kind of getting a hold of people in classrooms, and I know we're working on a virtual farm tour of my farm, and hopefully that'll be able to get me into classrooms later this year too.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Farm Journal Live. Julia Nunez, Alice in Dairyland from Wisconsin. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Earlier this month, USDA saying milk production in August rose nearly 2% to 17.8 billion pounds in the top 24 producing states. Now that's compared to last year. Production per cow topping 2,000 pounds and the cow herd climbing 51,000 head higher over a year ago. Overall production is down from earlier in the year, but still above 2019 levels. Let's go ahead and bring in Mike North. And Mike, you've been watching these markets and production pretty closely. What's your read on where we sit right now in 2020?
Well, obviously, early in the year, the COVID pandemic caused a lot of milk dumping, which spent enough time in the press for everyone to become aware of that story. But as prices began to rebound in June and July and work their way into some higher levels, production really began to turn as some of the co-ops removed the caps that they were putting on their producers, and producers began to respond to the positive price influences that were coming about as a response to the food box program specifically, as well as some of the shortages created by the milk dumping that took place in April. So as we've come through summer, we've witnessed not only production back on the rise year over year as we've returned to a, let's call it, more normal balanced ration, but as more cows have been added back to the herd, we've also continued to increase production in that regard. An August report wasn't just about what happened in August, but also the revisions that were done to the July numbers, adding more cows and increasing the production that was reported in the July report. And generally, when you see that trend coming about in USDA milk production reports, it speaks to an ongoing accelerated growth that hasn't really fully been caught up to in the official numbers. So we look for greater production as we head towards fall, and with harvest coming along at a fairly good pace, we expect quality feed to help that milk production continue to stay strong through the end of the year.
You know, Mike, earlier in the year, it was kind of a scary time as we saw some of these prices start to fall off. We had issues with demand, especially, you know, between restaurants and schools. That was a big problem. Where do we sit now as far as the financial health of these markets and our dairies going through the rest of this year?
You're right to say that the earlier part of the year was troubling, to say the least. CFAP certainly helped that situation and mend some of those fences, if you will, broken during the COVID disaster. And now the food box program has brought some additional demand for products. So we've seen a big uptick in milk prices. That's not necessarily to say that the prices on the screen and what people are seeing as a wholesale price in terms of USDA announcement is what's making its way to the farm. In response to the big food box demand, cheese prices got out ahead of a lot of the other products, causing some big producer price differentials, or PPDs, negative PPDs as they are often referred to. That took a lot of revenue back out of the milk check that otherwise would have been there in a more normal environment. However, we have seen recovery and a better financial situation coming through some of these higher prices, putting most dairymen in a better spot, especially compared to what we would have expected in the depths of the COVID crisis. We look for some solid pricing through the end of the year. Current futures has fourth quarter average north of $18 on Class 3. That is a place where many can make money, and if PPDs are not too negative, that will largely find its way into the milk check.
You know, one of the things obviously we're always trying to do is balance some of the uncertainty, the volatility of these markets. A lot of things we don't know heading into the third and fourth quarter. And obviously we thought we had an idea of what 2020 was going to bring, but it's been something completely different. As we work toward 2021, any advice on ways to kind of to look out and make sure we're stable moving forward on the farm?
Yeah, I think that is the underlying message that we have preached for a long time now, and we'll call it Food Box 3.0. Kicked in as we came into September, providing the last little boost, if you will, in our opinion, to milk price, something that frankly should be taken advantage of looking out through 2021. As you look at the forward curve for price, you're not going to find the kind of prices that we are experiencing presently, but with the first half of next year averaging $16.50, a producer can step in today, and there are lots of tools in the toolbox to use. We like optionality in whatever approach a producer takes. More specifically, the DRP tool is something that we have written a lot of endorsements for. We believe that that is a very strong tool to be using right now, simply because we don't know what lives on the other side of the election. And if there's other programs that step in post-election to boost prices, we don't want to cap ourselves. And some producers did find themselves in a bind as they took that approach this summer, taking advantage of what they thought was historically great prices. We don't want to be in that same bind as we go into winter. So we're advising use of that tool along with other option strategies to manage price and underpin these levels.
Do you think production is going to continue to go up? Are all signs pointing in that direction?
Yeah, it generally takes a lot to slow production down when it's already accelerating. There are different co-ops and other plants around the country that are instituting supply controls with their patrons. that will help curb things a little bit. But keep in mind that if we put in really good feed, and that's really been the story this year, we've had a lot of really good quality forage that's been put up. Silage season went well through most of the country. With good feed, we expect milk production to follow. And as we head towards that February, March period, we're into what we call the spring flush, which is when cows are at their peak performance. And frankly, that will help maintain some of this momentum that we've built both in the size of our cow herd as well as the productivity of those cows. So as we go forward, yes, we look for production to continue to grow, and that likely will carry through spring.
All right. Well, always appreciate the insights. Mike North, Commodity Risk Management Group, our guest today. Thank you again for being here with us. And if you have a lot that you'd like to focus on this week as far as dairy goes, make sure you go over to dairyherd.com and you can sign up for Farm Journal's Dairy Week. There's some free event features, some podcasts, ebooks, along with live and on-demand webinars. Of course, our TV crews are focusing on dairy all week, so make sure to join us on Ag Day each day and U.S. Farm Report this weekend. I believe Mike will be back with us this weekend on U.S. Farm Report as well. So thanks again for watching today on Farm Journal Live. I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great afternoon.